I'm really nervous. I always get nervous like this before I first start. So I know I have fuel pressure. That was a fuel line that just blew, if you heard that. So let's go check it out. Come on, Dan. I think a fuel line just blew. And yes, it did. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Frank McLuce from Garageaholic here. As you can see, we're working on the S14 M3, and it's getting quite dusty. So what we're going to need to do is take it out and get it cleaned. But before we do that, we need to get the S14 in. So as you can see here, we don't have an S14 in this engine bay, which, by the way, is a very clean and very brand new engine bay. But what we have here is a fully restored 2.5 liter S14 engine. Everything's ready to go, except one major thing. And that is the transmission. As you can see, we have a lightweight single mass flywheel that's installed as is, ready to go. But we do not have a pressure plate and a clutch disc. So we had some problems with ECS and Turner trying to get that set up. So we're done waiting. And I am not waiting any longer. We are just going to get the engine in, and we're going to worry about the transmission installation later. What that's going to allow us to do is by getting the engine in now, is we can get all of our cooling completed. We can get our power steering lines up, our oil lines installed. We can get our bumper installed and get that fully aligned. We can get our hood installed. We can do our AC lines. We can do our wiring in the engine bay. And then when it's time, all we need to do is hook up the transmission underneath the car. Yes, it's going to be inconvenient and disconcerting, but it's what we have to do in order to make our schedule, which, by the way, is if we get the pressure plate and the clutch in time, should be a couple more weeks before we get this thing on the road. So guys, stand with me, learn something, and tune in. I don't know why I said tune in, I just said it, but stay on, stay tuned. Check it out. The S14 is now in. Dan, wiggle it a little bit just so you can see how much play is on it. We don't have it bolted in yet. You can see it kind of moves more backward. It actually was kind of a challenge to get it installed without the transmission. We had a couple of issues, but overall, I think it looks pretty good. I mean, we just install the cooling systems and get everything plumbed up. We can get the hood on, we can get the bumper aligned, and get all that stuff in the front done. And then anything that we do now is just going to be transmission, shifter, drive shaft, and exhaust. But that's something that we're all going to be doing from underneath anyway. The only thing that's different is the transmission. And now at this point, it's just a transmission job. So it's pretty standard stuff. And we can continue to move forward with this project while we wait for ECS to get their ass in gear and get us the right parts. So wait a couple weeks and we got the clutch plate and pressure plate in, and we are now installing the transmission, which was really very easy. This thing is so small and so light. It really just went in like a snap. As you can see, I could just manhandle it right on in there. Yeah, when we were done with that, we started working on the transmission jack, jacking up the transmission into place there. A very satisfying view of getting all four of those holes aligned. That way you know deep down in your soul that this is going to work. So we just had to screw all them in, and then it was on to getting the drive shaft installed. It was really easy, very standard. Knew everything obviously for the drive shaft. Just tighten up all the bolts, torque mark them, and then obviously we got the exhaust installed. And there you go. I mean, it's perfect fit. I mean, everything fit really well. Some modifications required, but it worked out really, really, really well. So here comes the moment of truth. And yes, the coil is disconnected because I wanted to make sure that everything will turn right before we do a first start, right? So I'm going to be doing this in a couple of baby steps. We got the entire intake installed. The throttle body is good. The TPS clicks on and off the throttle, which is perfect. The airflow meter is hooked up. So everything should work. Oh wait, do I have oil? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a crank and we're just going to see if this thing actually works. So get right in here. Okay, so that has pretty good crank. It has pretty good compression. You can hear it. So I feel like if all we do is just put this on, I think it should fire up. So let's just do it. Let's just keep on doing it. Stick to the one take. Let's try it. I'm really nervous. I always get nervous like this before I first start. So I know I have fuel pressure. That was a fuel line that just blew, if you heard that. So let's go check it out. Come on, Dan. I think a fuel line just blew. And yes, it did. All right, let's put it back up in the air and fix that. All right, rest it down on the jacks. All right, let's see what's up. Yeah, looks like something blew right off here.
That sweet gurgle.
All right, let's just put it back on for now. And we will need to retighten these Oetiker clamps. And this is why we do test drives. This is why we test everything. So let me clean all this up, clean all the fuel up. Everything's all covered in fuel now, but that's okay. Better now than later when we're on the road or we can't get up the driveway again. So there were two things that were wrong here. If you zoom in on this barb here, on this coupler, you'll see that I actually had the Oetiker clamp at the very end. And if you see how I match it up, it was not on the barb itself, rather the collar. If I take this smaller Oetiker clamp that now I'm going to be using, and I clamp it right there, right on the actual barb, you'll see we'll have much better performance. We ready? Now the car is down, and we got the coil connected. Now it's time for crank one more time. Hold on to your butts. Nope, nothing yet. All right, the fuse pump fuse blew. It was fuse 11 on the E30, and it blew because it's a 7.5 amp fuse, and we were putting full power to the pump, and the amperage rises as the pump is building pressure, and the more pressure it builds, the higher the amperage goes, and it easily blew through that 7.5 amps. Now, before upgrading to a 10 amp fuse, which I'm a little hesitant to do, remember, this is a Walbro in-tank pump, not the factory pump. So it's going to require more amperage, and it's going to blow sooner than a stock pump will. So I want to see if actually just starting the car again is going to blow the pump, to blow the fuse, and if it does, we're going to have to go upgrade to a 10 amp fuse. But when you upgrade to a 10 amp fuse, you just have to be really careful because the wiring is fused for 7.5 amps. So there is margin there. So more than likely, the 12 gauge wire that we have is going to be good for 10 amps, which is why I'm not too much of a stickler about upgrading to 10 amps. But I just want to make sure that it will still work with a 7.5 amp. So we've proven we've got fuel. We took a spark plug out, we smelled it, you can see it, it smelled like fuel, it's getting fuel. So I don't think that the lines are crossed. We also took the ignition wires out here and we tested to make sure we have spark. So I put the spark plug into the coil, the wire, and I put the edge of the spark plug along the ground, and we definitely had spark when Dan was cranking it. We also put a 10 amp fuse. We ended up putting a 10 amp fuse into the fuse box for the fuel pump, and that didn't blow. So I'm a little bit perplexed as to why it's not firing. So I'm going to continue to check connectors and make sure that the DME actually has power, because that's another big one too, is to make sure that the DME is actually getting power through the main relay. So that's going to be another thing that we check next. Okay, so now we checked one more thing, which was basically power to the main relay here. The main relay has an 87 and an 87, which basically allows 2 high amperage outputs to go out of the relay, and we were sure that we got 12 volts when Dan had clicked the key to the on position. It actually activated all power to the DME, so we know we're good there. We know we have spark, we know we have fuel, and one thing I didn't do is I didn't open the throttle when we tried starting it. So let's try that. Ready? Go ahead. Nope. I'm kind of an idiot, and I thought that the fuel lines were good, and yes, from the fuel lines up into the engine bay, it's all good. But the line that I actually blew, I didn't even realize was the return line, and it was because up here I put the lines backwards when I reinstalled the fuel tank. So instead of rerouting the lines up above the fuel tank, I'm just gonna take these 2 guys and swap them. This right here is supposed to be the fuel send line, and as you can see, it was completely dry. And this was the fuel return line. So the fuel is actually coming out of the return line and into the backside of the regulator, which is not the way it should be. It should be opposite of that. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flip the lines in here, and I think it'll fire right up. Okay, so we swapped the fuel lines down back there where the filter was, so it's going through the filter. One thing I didn't even notice was that when the first time we blew that fuel line, I didn't even realize that it wasn't even going through the filter. So that was my bad, very junior moment, but I think we're ready for that start. I think we're gonna end up building fuel pressure. I know we have spark. We put all the connectors back to where they were when we proved that we had spark, so let's just do this. Okay, everything's clicking. Lost fuel pressure again. All right, take 32. Fuel lines are good. If we blow another one, we'll just have to fix it then, but if we don't, it should start. So let's just do this. Got the battery charger on too. Whoa! Yes! Come on! Come on! Come on!
Do it.
Can you hold the throttle up a little bit, maybe? It runs! Yes! It's off! Okay, that's all right. That's something. That's something. It is. That's. We got to do a little adjustment, but it runs. It runs.
Timing adjustment, it sounds like. So.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if there is any timing that we can do. Whew, okay, good. Okay, it fires. It fires. Yeah. I just think it needs to break itself in, honestly. I don't think it's not just going to start right up because it's never ran before.
Right.
A little bit, a little bit. All right, it's getting better and better every start now. Here, give me the camera. Give it a little. Smells good. A little rich, but it smells good. All right, turn it off. And by turn it off, I mean let it just die. But yeah, it won't idle basically, right? So,
Yep.
Okay, so it's not idling very well. We have to figure that out and understand what's going on with the idle. Maybe there's something going on with the control valve or something like that. But an air leak or something. I know that there's no cable, I know clamp on that, but that's okay. I don't think that that's the cause of this. But it definitely fires up. I'm pretty happy so far, pretty happy.
It sounds like it's a little advanced. It's a little ahead of itself.
Sounds like it's a little advanced. All right, we have to figure something out then, figure out how to do that. Okay, good. So now that it starts, I mean, we can't really get it to idle, but we can play with this. We can do something with this now, and there's no fuel leaks. So, actually, that's going to be it for today. First start, we have a lot of work to do still to get to the drive, but that'll definitely be in the next episode, I guarantee it. We'll just continue to hone in on this, make sure we can get it to idle, make it run reliably, and then we can take it around the block and see how things go because it has all fluids in it. We're ready to go. Excellent. Dan, thank you so much for your help. Chris Dunbar, thank you for your help. Definitely love your red M3 and all the help that you provided. Thank you so much. I'm just feeling great. This is good. The project is now alive. Guys, that's it for me today, and we'll see you soon. Definitely, it'll be another one very soon. Take it easy, guys. Later.